I think you asking the question in the terms that you have is absolutely spot on, asking how he is personally. And I don't want to dwell on the individual characters particularly in this, but if you go from a setup where you were effectively married to someone who knew you for a number of years, who almost acted as your mother as well as your wife in many respects. That's Boris Johnson's former wife, Marina Wheeler, who I got to know quite well over a number of years when I was working as sort of private advisor to Boris Johnson. You go from that setup and you form a relationship with a much younger woman who doesn't know you so well. You become estranged from your children. Now, that's enough for anyone to go through that kind of upheaval when the rest of their life, their job is on a sort of a routine path, if you like. But to take all of that on, to lose that rock of stability in your personal life, to move to a very much more volatile situation, young children on the way, and you become Prime Minister at a time when big issues like Brexit and COVID have to be handled. I think your question is absolutely the right starting point. It's the chaos in the behind the scenes in Downing Street before you get to anything else, before you get to the quality of advisors, whether he's surrounded by too many yes people. I don't think you can begin to understand what's going wrong if you don't, first of all, reflect on the enormity of that.
Yeah, and of course, Tim, he had COVID very badly. He was really genuinely very seriously ill.
Yep.
I also noticed, I mean, there was this big, few months ago, Boris, you know, I've given up the booze, I've given up cheese, pictures of him out running and cycling and losing weight. And he seemed yesterday to have put back on, I thought, a substantial amount of weight.
Yeah, well, all of us struggle a little bit with weight at various times. And yes, it is hard to lose weight. And I suspect, you know, the pressures that he's under, comfort eating is a natural thing as well. Yes, so it's an added pressure when there are enough pressures upon him already. Yeah,
I mean, look, you know, I'm not gloating over his discomfort in any way, but I'm with you. I think he looks... I thought yesterday he looked slightly troubled. I thought his confidence had gone ever so slightly. There's no way, Tim, the Boris that you've known for years, if he'd lost his place in a speech, he would have turned that into the most enormous joke, wouldn't he? Yesterday...
Of course he would, yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday...
And we all know that we underperform when we're tired. And you mentioned his weight. I've mentioned his, his personal circumstances.
Yeah.
The estrangement from his children, which I think still persists. You know, they really, as often children do when a relationship breaks down, they take the side of their mother against the father who's walked out of the setup. Yeah. You take all of that, and he just looks like a tired man. And, you know, to be Prime Minister, to be leader of the country is difficult at any time, but it's particularly difficult at the moment, given the scale of the various challenges that we face. And it's made harder. Let's put all that just aside for 1 minute. I think it's the most important explanation of what we're facing. But then you sort of add in the fact that he's got a fairly lightweight cabinet. He hasn't got the biggest beasts of the Conservative Party inside his team. Both you and I supported Brexit. I thought the decision to get rid of the anti-Brexit ministers at the time of the autumn of 2019 was the right decision. You couldn't continue to have ministers at the top of government thwarting the will of the people. But some of the people that were dumped at that time should, I think, now have been brought back into government. I think we should have had some of the big beasts of government back at the top table, helping the government navigate these difficult times. And instead, I'm afraid we still have a lot of people who just don't have the experience of government that these challenging times demand.
And they're non-entities, many of them. I mean, they really, really are. Tim, I think there's some real talent on the backbenches. And as you say, Brexit now within the Conservative Party, pretty much a settled issue. So, yes, he should be looking for talent, for experience. Tim, he's been through bad times before. Sackings, scandals, he's been through the lot. He's managed in the past to emerge through it all with a laugh and a smile. He's brushed it all off, and he always comes back to a higher, bigger, better office in some way. This time, and given that there are elements of the parliamentary party that are now not very far away from being mutinous, given that a significant chunk of the press is now asking some pretty hard questions, given the problems that are mounting up for him, the cross-channel crisis, the economy, you name it. This time, in your opinion, can Boris bounce back?
Oh, Nigel, I didn't predict Brexit would happen. I didn't predict that Trump would be elected. I didn't predict that Corbyn would become leader of the Labour Party. Don't ask me to do predictions, but let me answer your question in this way. I think Boris is still a political commodity that he can win the next election. I think Keir Starmer is still so weak that Labour's absent in Scotland. But go back to where you began, the shambles in the government.
Yeah.
The last time the Conservatives had a majority of this size was the 1980s. I don't care much about the next general election at the moment. I care about the fact that we are wasting this parliamentary majority of 80. We could be using this to reform the public services, to simplify the tax system, to begin to ensure that parents get the education that their children want. And we are zigzagging through this time. And that's what infuriates me.
But this is because of a lack of leadership from Boris Johnson. The government's drifting.
Absolutely. And so, yes, he's an election winner. But the problem is, we know he was an election winner. He's always had that gift. Yeah. The question has always been, is he a capable prime minister as well? And that's what the great frustration is. Month by month by month, I'm afraid the answer to that question has to be no. Can he turn around that? That's the question I hope the answer to is yes. I increasingly fear it's no.